Okay, so back by popular demand, it's Ren, and this time it's with Chinchilla, and this is called Chalk Outlines. Now, this song has been heavily requested as well. It's popped up so many times in the comments, and I thought this would be the next great one. There's a couple of others that people have requested. We will go and do those too. We will go down this entire rabbit hole. I promise you we will do that, specifically for an artist like this that absolutely piques my interests to the highest degree. So yeah, so let's get straight into this. Ren and Chinchilla, Chalk Outlines, live. Let's see what this man's got. Let's go. An electric guitar this time.
I'm still here in this bed that I crawled in. I hope that I'm someone else in the morning. So take this one, wash it down and you'll be fine. And walk around in the floating chalk outline. So it goes, let it be. In the gallows, balanced on my toes so I can breathe. But little by little, bit by bit, I push it back down with a new habit. If not for long, just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile. Oh my, oh my, we trace ourselves in these chalk outlines. Oh my, oh my, erase ourselves in these chalk outlines.
Sertraline and a sip of serotonin. Don't cry, 'cause there's a pill for everything. Take this one, wash it down and you'll be fine. The feeling goes and you draw a chalk outline.
So it goes, let it be. In the gallows, I'm balanced on my toes so I can breathe. But little by little, bit by bit, I push it back down with a new habit. If not for long, just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile. Oh my, oh my, we trace ourselves in these chalk outlines. Oh my, erase ourselves. It's such a perfect day. take it just in case, take it just in case. I'm scared of being okay, 'cause all things change, all things change. It's such a perfect day, it's a beautiful shade, it's a beautiful shade. I'm scared of being okay, 'cause all things change. But little by little, bit by bit, I'll push it back down with a new habit. If not for long, just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile. Oh my, we trace ourselves in these chalk outlines. Oh my,
erase ourselves in these chalk outlines.
Jesus. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't stop that. There's a lot to break down here. Let me try and see if I can sort of put together the brilliant layering, or try to explain at least the brilliant layering, conceptual layering that's actually gone into this song. My mind just ran, aside from being punched in the gut, my mind just absolutely ran at 1,000,000 miles a second, just from visuals to concept to lyrics to everything. So I hope I can be somewhat coherent and be able to actually put my thoughts out in a manner that's so cohesive, yet sort of philosophically sound. Let's just start this from the beginning and just see where we go with this. Let's go. Okay, so before he starts even playing over here, I've just got a sort of a thought process over here. When he's walking through there, you kind of tend to get like a glimmer of his innocence, right? You can see a glimmer of his like curiosity, like he's just walking through the passage. Although, again, seems to be a theme with him, very clinical, concrete-like sort of environment. But what I actually feel about this particular thing is when he's walking past all of those books, those aren't just normal books. It actually feels like they're actually precedences. They actually feel like they're court papers, essentially. So if you ever walk in like a courtroom and you go to like the clerk's area, beneath the courtroom, at least in South Africa and probably in most courts, there's lots of like paperwork where they actually stack the dockets and they stack all the files and they stack all the things and they stack the judgments on certain people. So he's walking past there like in a very clinical sort of uniform. I'll get to why he's wearing white, specifically in my own mind. I'll get to why he's wearing white, which plays back into the chalk outlines. but his curiosity, where he like goes and he looks through that, and all of it is like really dated, right? But it's almost like he's looking through judgments, and then the whole walk through that, and you can sort of hear the sounds in the background where they're kind of muffled, and then the light surges. And I kind of feel like at that point he felt free, so he was just looking through sort of like documents like life. He's looking through like, just you tend to look at it from like, a bird's eye view. You tend to look at everybody else's lives, and you don't really know what other people go through, so you don't really know what judgments are placed on them. And that's kind of what I feel he tried to portray over there. And then when he walks through it and the voices get louder, and then there's that surge in that electricity, where's that momentary pause and it goes dark, and it's kind of like a small sort of, I wouldn't say reminder, but it's kind of like a small preview that there is darkness. Here's a preview of the darkness that is much more to come. And what I really like about what he did over there, specifically with the echo of the chair, when he snapped that chair and he put it down and then he sat down and took the guitar, it's almost like he's now about to pass his own judgment on himself. He's about to judge himself, essentially. So I feel like that's where my mind went with that. I'm not entirely sure if that is where anybody else went with that. And now this is where he goes into sort of like a courtroom confession, essentially, but on himself, right? So it's almost like a witness taking the stand. But unbelievable.
I'm still here in this bed that I crawled in. I hope that I'm someone else in the morning. So take this one, wash it down.
See what I'm talking about? The judgment over there is like I'm still in the bed that I crawled in. So he's not happy about that. It's almost like he's judging himself for it, and he's almost like saying, I hope I'm a better person in the morning. So like once the judgment's been passed, maybe if I introspect and become aware of my wrongdoings, or I become aware of the fact that I don't really want to be in this bed the entire time, I really can't help it, maybe I'll wake up better. Maybe I'll wake up where the darkness doesn't continue past the night. Do you know what I mean? So maybe I'll be able to, for once, maybe dream lucidly. I don't know. Let's go.
And you'll be fine. Walk around in the floating chalk outline.
Sorry, I need to go back there because I need to make sure I didn't miss anything.
So take this one, wash it down, and you'll be fine. Then walk around in the floating chalk outline.
That's really, really brilliant, where he actually says, we'll take this one and says that take this one and wash it down, and hoping that you'll be fine. So already he's alluding to the drugs, right? Already he's alluding to the fact that this drug's going to numb him. So the whole thing about the chalk outlines, which is immensely layered. It's just, in my head, it's literally split into three very, very complex things that all tie in together. Now, I'll explain that shortly. I'm not going to do it on this part over here. I'll explain the chalk outlines thinking in my next one, when we hit the next hook. But this over here, he's already referring to being numb and walking around in that numb feeling because of the drugs that he has to take, right? To feel better. But I've got a thought process. I'm just going to try and package it a little bit better for you. So let's just keep listening, and then I'll get to that.
So it goes, let it be. In the gallows, balanced on my toes so I can breathe.
It's such a crazy theory for this.
Little by bit, I push it back down with a new habit. If not for long, just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile. Oh my, oh my, we trace ourselves in these chalk outlines. Oh my, oh my, erase ourselves in these
Flickering of the
chalk
lights, brilliant.
outlines.
So clever.
Sertraline and a sip of serotonin. Don't cry, 'cause there's a pill for everything.
Unbelievable.
Take this one, wash it down, and you'll be fine.
Now, what they are doing over here with regards to referencing the actual drugs itself, they're referencing the recreational drugs and they're referencing the actual pharmaceutical drugs as well. And it's almost saying like, we can't escape. I promise you what's running in my mind with regards to this chalk outline theories is hopefully going to blow your mind, because I've really got an insane theory over here. But they're referring to drugs on either side, where you can't escape it either way. You take the recreational drugs to sort of feel better. You fall into a vice because you feel like your life is falling apart. You feel like there's no way to turn. And then when you fall into those vices, the sort of remedy for that is to put you in an institution, given the clothes, right? Given the rehab, white clothes, white chalk line, all that, it all just ties together. I'm getting there. But then you go to rehab and the circle continues. It's like you just take me off one drug and you put me onto another drug, right? And I can't escape this cycle. And anyway, let's just get to that chorus and I'll explain to you.
Feeling goes and you draw a chalk outline.
So it goes, let it be. In the gallows, I'm balanced on my toes so I can breathe. But little by little, bit by bit, I push it back down with a new habit. If not for long, just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile. Oh my, oh my, we trace ourselves in these chalk outlines. Oh my.
Okay, before I get... Okay, wait. Alright. Before I get too much, this is choking me up. Before I get too emotional, let me try and explain. Let me try and see if I can actually articulate this chalk outline theory of mine, or this chalk outline sort of like dichotomy, the synopsis in my brain about these chalk outlines. Chalk outlines, right? If you just look at their attire, obviously this has got to do, firstly, chalk outline, white chalk, essentially. So it's clever. They're playing into that over there. They're playing into the rehab. They're playing into like going into the insane asylum, going into rehab, and being admitted as a patient because of drugs, whether it be recreational drugs, and then you go into these institutions and then you get given pharmaceutical drugs where you can't really escape any of this. But now the chalk outlines that they're trying to refer to here, where it's like, you know, we draw ourselves in these chalk outlines and then we erase ourselves in these chalk outlines, is basically referring, it's like a threefold theory in my head. So when he says, like, you know, we draw ourselves in these chalk outlines, is firstly we box ourselves into this life. We go from innocence, right? And then we go down these avenues, we go down these paths, and we only learn down the line that we're drawing these chalk outlines around ourselves. So we're kind of boxing ourselves into like a society that's driven by the vices, essentially. That, you know, if life is tough and whatever else, you can go party it up, you can drink alcohol, you can take these recreational drugs, which just sinks you deeper and deeper and deeper into depression, into anxiety, and whatever else. But that's your one sort of that's your one outline thing. So you're drawing yourself, you're boxing yourself into a society where you can't break free and really be and express your true self. Another aspect of the chalk outline is actually the crime scene. So he's basically saying we create our own crime scenes of ourselves. We put ourselves to death. We draw these chalk outlines around ourselves because of like sort of what we do to ourselves, how we go through life, how we take these recreational drugs, and slowly, like metaphorically, we're literally drawing these crime scene lines all the way around us. But now, how are we doing that? We're doing that with chalk. Chalk is obviously whitened when you're doing that. From the recreational drugs, you're cutting lines, which looks like chalk. So you literally you're cutting, like, let's say cocaine or whatever else. That's your number one vice, right? So you go into those sort of vices, and that's a line. And he says bit by bit, so line by line, essentially referring to, cocaine and things like that. So line by line, we draw these chalk outlines, which essentially we create our own crime scene where we erase ourselves. So within that, we erase ourselves. We take ourselves out of this earth because of these lines that we draw around us and these lines that we take. And then we take that and then we get admitted. We can't escape that, so we get admitted into rehab, right? To then try and get better. And what do they give us? They give us more chalk. Now chalk, if you actually think of like a Xanax, or if you think of medication, it's like white, and literally if you actually draw with it on the wall or whatever else, it literally acts like chalk. So we're drawing these lines around ourselves, not only with the recreational drug, but also with the pharmaceutical drug. And by doing that, we're literally creating our own crime scene, that even the remedy of the chalk that we drew ourselves around us, right, actually furthers our demise. I'm not entirely sure if I've put that, if that makes any sense, or if I've managed to explain that in a way that is sort of sensible, but it is just absolutely mind-blowing how brilliant the concept is, how brilliant the actual concept of the chalk outline, essentially. And the thing is that this chalk outline is like chalk being a very sort of like soft substance that can crumble. And if you just think about, you can crumble pharmaceutical pills, you can crumble chalk, but eventually that ends. And when you're finished drawing your outline of chalk and your chalk ends, that means that that's the end of your life, right? It's a crime scene. There might as well be a number, and there might as well be a red tape around the crime scene, because that was your moment to depart the earth, essentially. So this chalk outlines has got so many layers to it that is just absolutely brilliant. But let me explain to you just one more thing in terms of why it was so clever to do it with Chinchilla and having two people. Because a lot of the times when you go down that rabbit hole, when you go down the vices, you tend to take somebody with you because you're too scared in doing it alone. Nobody wants to be alone. Nobody wants to be alone, specifically when they're in that space. So it kind of like becomes like mushrooms under a tree. You kind of like, you drop spores that you really don't see, and then in hopes to grow another mushroom in that dark space. And mushrooms only grow in dark spaces. So you're hoping to grow that mushroom with you in dark spaces, even though you know that it's not going to be good for the other person. Subconsciously, you know that it's not going to be good for the other person. But the companionship, that having somebody there, you kind of like, you justify it, and you get in denial that even the people you love the most, you know that this is going to end in their demise as well, right? But the fear of being lonely, the fear of being in a crime scene where you've only drawn the lines around yourself, is just too taxing on you, right? So you try to bring somebody else in, knowing that you're bringing them into your crime scene where they'll lie beside you. And I think that was actually the idea of having both of those people, which is brilliant. Now, the idea of him like standing on my toes in the gallows, which is obviously, what they used to do with criminals, where they used to hang them, right, on these platforms. I'm standing on my toes. I don't want to die. I'm standing on my toes. I don't want to die, but I'm almost there, and I know I'm almost there. And the only lifeline I have is that noose. That's the only lifeline I have, is the noose holding me up and my toes just tiptoeing on the gallows. That's how close I am to falling through, right? And if you look at that concept of the gallows, it's kind of like Hangman, right? Which is, once again, we draw ourselves, right? So when you're actually drawing the hangman, you're actually drawing it in with a pencil. He's just referring to it with chalk. It's just, I don't know. Okay, I don't know where I went with that, but anyway, you guys let me know if that makes sense to you. Let's just carry on.
Erase ourselves. It's such a perfect day. Take it just in case. Take it just in case.
It's crazy that they actually think of drugs as like a redundancy, even if they don't need it, but it's a perfect day. And what if this day turns? Let's just take it in case, because things change. We know things change. We know that the lights flicker. We know that at any moment there will be darkness. We know that at any moment there's going to be a surge. And I'm so petrified of the darkness, I would rather stay in the numbness just in case. Just in case, because I can't handle the pain. I can't handle the actual truth of what of myself. Because if I have to handle that, right, I need to pass down the judgment that just hurts too much, that I know will land me up in the same place, that just perpetuates all of this again and again and again, because I can't get myself out of the cycle. Anyway, carry on.
I'm scared of being okay, 'cause all things change. All things change. It's such a perfect day. It's a beautiful shame. It's a beautiful shame. I'm scared of being okay, 'cause all things change.
The synchronization and the harmonies is absolutely beautiful. Just
Little by little, bit by bit, I'll push it back down with a new habit.
Absolutely brilliant going into the a cappella over there, where they actually cut the music, because it's like when they're in that sedated state, when they're in that state of drugs, right, at least it feels bliss. It feels like there's instruments playing. It feels like, you know, that there's at least a little bit of hope. Going into that a cappella kind of brings out the pain. So cutting that music, right, sort of, it actually forces you to feel the reality of their situation, and they don't want to keep you in that for too long. It's like kind of like a roller coaster. They don't want to keep their audience in that for too long. They actually keep it at the a cappella, so you can actually hear the anguish, you can hear the hurt, and then he brings back the guitar to almost bring you into that lucid, drug-like state within the music production. So I'm going on a bit of a fucking tangent over here, but anyway, let's carry on.
If not for long, just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile. Oh my, we trace ourselves in these chalk outlines. Oh my,
erase ourselves in these chalk outlines.
And then she ends with that, we erase ourselves in these chalk outlines. So we draw ourselves in these chalk outlines, and then we erase ourselves in these chalk outlines. We do that our entire life, right? It's almost like we're not born to be busy living. We're actually born to be busy dying. That is basically what our lives are, right? To eventually, after we're done with our chalk, we erase ourselves. It becomes a crime scene, and it's a crime scene of the self. No one took us out but ourselves. Absolutely fucking brilliant, man. I'm sorry, this took really long. It's like a half an hour reaction. I really apologize about that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And peace.